Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jill, aka G.E. White, and I love stories. I hope you guys do too, because that's what we discuss here. So today I'm going to be giving you my final thoughts on the series of Blood and Bone by John Gwynne, which is made up of the books A Time of Dread, A Time of Blood, and A Time of Courage. I did speak about A Time of Dread in my last book review, so I won't be focusing too much on that. But this will be a heavy spoiler review. I will be giving away the ending of this book series because while I did enjoy it, there was definitely some choices made. Yeah. In who lives and who dies in the end of the series, and I kind of found some things that were a little bit problematic, a little bit lazy in the way of writing, and while I still enjoyed the book as a whole, or book series I should say as a whole, it kind of soured it for me at the end, so not gonna lie, a little bit disappointed. That being said, I should also point out that this will be the last video that I do in this particular format. I want to expand my channel to do some video essays where I get to talk about my other loves in storytelling, namely, movies, television shows, video games, anime, and musicals. So I'm really looking forward to changing up some things. I've got some really cool stuff down the pipeline, and I hope you guys will stick with me during that time because I do love to talk about, visual mediums and storytelling because it's really quite amazing. Anyway, I don't want to, harp on that too long, so we will talk about the book series of Blood and Bone by John Gwynne. And I actually had a whole freaking script prepared for you. It was like, I don't know, 4,000 words and went into like the whole what happened summary, and it was a lot. It was like close to 40 minutes, and I can't do that. So I decided to do a more seat of my pants, just telling it like it is, and what I felt about this book series. So, quick recap, this is a dark fantasy, an epic dark fantasy, I should say, similar in tone to something like A Game of Thrones, where you have, these different factions, and these fantastical creatures, all that kind of stuff. Lots of battles, lots of action scenes. I would say battle and action take up, 70% of this entire series. It's a lot. But Gwynne does write action very well. It's, very entertaining. It's fast-paced. You get caught up in it. And he does such a good job with it because, you have, it'll start off as some big battle, but then you get into these smaller skirmishes and, all these kind of cool little traps people come up with or strategies to box in their opponents. It's really neat. It's like a whole book series of, the Helm's Deep battle or Battle of the Bastards or, Battle of Minas Tirith. You can't really go wrong with these, big epic battles that are engaging. Characters overall, I've enjoyed. It's written and once again, similar to Game of Thrones, where we get point of view chapters, so each chapter is from one of the main characters, and we kind of learn about the world through their experiences. And it is, these people are spread out throughout the world and then eventually come together. Obviously, the conceit that kind of sets it apart from Game of Thrones is that this particular world, the Banished Lands, which was first established in Gwynne's first series, which was of the Faithful and the Fallen. It kind of changes the conceit of just a epic dark fantasy into, having these beings that are very much like, I guess, angel and demon stand-ins. You have the Kadoshim, who are demons, and the Benalim, who are angels. But, they are these kind of morally gray characters. I mean, not so much the Kadoshim. The Kadoshim are they're evil for evil's sake, for the most part, and it kind of sucks. The Benalim, on the other, they suck because they're tyrants for the most part. So at the end of Gwynne's original quadrilogy, both the Kadoshim and the Benalim, they come into the material world of the Banished Lands. There is a giant battle, and they are able to seal away the main instigator of the Kadoshim, Asaroth, in this starstone metal kind of prison, if you will. And so he's sealed away, and, you know, they don't have to worry about him for like the next 100 years. And then when this series happens, 100 years later, the Kadoshim have gained power again. They have kind of upped their numbers after being defeated by having children with humans and, you know, procreating all that time. And they've got an army, and they eventually go after Astaroth, and they wake him up. And this causes a lot of grief for everybody. So I don't really want to go into the particulars. I've actually already filmed this once before, and it was once again 30 minutes. So instead of getting into all of the minutia of this series, I mostly just want to talk about what I had issues with this book. It's fairly straightforward in the idea of you have all these different factions that some of them have issues with each other, especially with the Benalim, who have been these tyrants, and, you know, you have to work with them, but they're kind of assholes, all that kind of stuff. All these different groups, they come together, and through kind of slowly chipping away at Astaroth and his horde, in the end, they are able to take out all of his people. Well, not all of his people, I should say, but they're able to defeat his army and get rid of, like, the main bad guys in the series. So the main bad guys in the series are Fritha, who is a high priestess. She makes a lot of, I guess, human-animal hybrid creatures, but despite that, I actually really enjoy her character. She's not like... I love female villains, and she's definitely somebody who considers herself the hero of her own story. She has a legitimate reason to hate the Benalim, and... you know, getting her point of view does help. So I do appreciate that, even though I will admit Gwynne, I think, does struggle a bit with, like, female character development. His other two main female characters are a little bit more two-dimensional, namely Riv, who is his main female protagonist, who ping-pongs back and forth between, you know, her devotion and love for, like, her mother and her lover Bleda. And then she's a beast on, like, on the battlefield. She's this amazing kind of fighter and berserker, which is cool, because you don't really get many female berserker characters, and I appreciate that, but I don't really get much more from her. Meanwhile, another villain, Jin, she's very much the woman scorned. She is the leader of this clan that Bleda and his clan were at war with a long time ago, you know, ancient rivals, but because the Benalim had kind of brought them together, Bleda and Jin were supposed to get married. Didn't turn out, obviously, because Bleda ended up falling in love with Riv. And, you know, Jin, she did not take too well to that. And so her clan ended up betraying him and the Benalim and joining with Astaroth and the Kadoshim. But we don't really get much more from her other than her being this woman scorned and trying to, I guess, prove herself better than Bleda. It's pretty much vengeance and, you know, sour grapes from her. Now, I can go into a lot more characters, but I don't really want to, you know, dilly-dally. Let's just talk about the ending and why I had an issue with it. So, as I said, all the main bad guys, they are killed off in this final battle. As they should be, because Gwynne said, you know, he's done with this series, he's not going to write any more books in the Banished Land saga, and if he left any of these people alive, you know, either they'd have to be dealt with in another way that neutralizes them, or it would invite a sequel, or just, like, you know, kind of leave certain loose ends, you know, dangling in the wind or whatever. I don't think that's the metaphor I want to go with, but it's what I have. So I appreciate that. It makes sense. All right, let's go with that. As for who lives and dies among the protagonists, most of the protagonists actually live. So, like, we have Drem, who is the everyman in this kind of group. He comes from humble beginnings and eventually joins this Order of the Bright Star that his father used to belong to. Gains this found and actual biological family in the sense of like cousins and aunts and stuff like that. And his story is it's endearing, and he's, despite the fact that he's kind of a, I don't know, dull. I get no dull. Dull is the word. He's a bit of a dull character to follow, but luckily the people that surround him make his story a lot more interesting. So with that said, Drem, he survives, Riv survives, and several of their friends survive, whether it's like Mikal, who was a Ben Alim from the original book series, who gets released at the same time that Astaroth does. I thought for sure they would kill him off, but they didn't. And Drem's Aunt Byrne, who is like this other badass warrior. It looked for a while that they were going to kill her off, but she survived some pretty gnarly wounds. Now, granted, she is maimed afterwards and permanently disabled because of it, but they let her survive. Cullen, who is like Drem's cousin and this very fiery and likable redhead, he is like the grandson of the main character from the original series. He survives. A friend of theirs doesn't. But I would say he's like a B-list character, and his death is very much about, pushing both Cullen and Drem to fight all that much more harder. Afra, who is Riv's mother, she also dies, and once again, it was done for emotional impact for Riv's character. So those are the characters that survive, which leaves Bleda as the one character who has these POV chapters in both books 2 and 3, who dies. And, you'd think, well, why do you find that so egregious? Was he such an amazing character that you didn't want to let him go? Not exactly, to be honest. He is a decent character. He grew a lot in the last 2 books. I did appreciate it. He has to step up, become the leader of his clan, and, he kind of grows in empathy because of that. He also is able to kind of put away his own desire for vengeance against one of the Ben Alim, this man named Cole. Cole was both Riv's father and also the one who had killed Bleda's older brother and sister at the beginning of the series, which was when he was a child. It's, he's been holding on to this grudge for a long time, and, he doesn't want to bow to the Ben Alim anymore. He is able to make a stand as the leader of the Sirak people, saying, we will help you, but as your equals, not as your subjects. And I really do think that's some great character development there. We also get to see him become this master battle strategist as he goes and rounds up his people and has to save them from Jin and her clan, who are just like full-on massacring any Sirak they come across. It's a very, that particular storyline of Jin, pursuing Bleda and his people across Arkona, which is one of the parts of the Banished Lands. Probably my favorite part in the entire book. It's really engaging. I really do love this interaction and watching him, come up against these really steep odds and, rise above it. So when he died, it kind of came as a shock, really came as a shock, as in, I thought it was a fake out. I flipped forward through the end of the book to see if there were any more chapters from his point of view, and there wasn't. So I was like, oh, I guess he's actually dead. And why I found this so egregious was not the fact that they had broken up the one romantic pair in Riv and Bleda, but, I don't know, the manner in how he died and what his death signified, it was problematic. So how Bleda died was he was murdered on the battlefield. And I say murdered instead of killed because the person who killed him was technically on his side. The person who killed him was Cole. So this is the man he was supposed to get revenge on, and in the end, this man ends up killing him anyway. Granted, Cole does not get away with this murder, thankfully, but Bleda does not get, you know, his revenge. He gets justice because the Sirak are the ones who end up executing Cole in the end. But I don't know, it just felt so egregious, especially with the fact that Bleda had just saved Cole on the battlefield. And now, granted, he didn't realize it was Cole he was saving. He just thought it was some random Benalim, and then he's like, oh, it's you! I hate you! And he did think about maybe killing this guy. He thought about it, and I mean, who wouldn't after all the pain that he had been put through by this man? But he's the bigger person. He's like, okay, do you know what? The other Benalim, they know that you've been up to some, like, really shady things. At the end of this, like, this war, you'll be dealt with by your peers. It's very much this kind of, like, okay, let the justice system take over. So it's really, really annoying that after this, after he shows him mercy, Cole just doesn't like being told that, like, you know, his actions have consequences and he'll have to face them. So he kills Bleda. And he tries to make it look like he was, you know, killed by some Charon warrior or whatever. Makes a mistake, obviously. He's, you know, first of all, someone sees what he does, and secondly, he uses Sirak, like, arrows to kill him, making it look like, oh, you got killed by friendly fire? No, that would never happen in the Sirak. So, as I said, Bleda does get justice, but it still just kind of sticks in my craw that in the end, Cole gets to win, at least over Bleda, and I don't know, that's just not right. The other main issue with Bleda's death is that of the protagonists, Bleda is the only person who is a person of color. Everybody else is like me and pasty as hell. Jin and her clan obviously are people of color as well, and there are a few, like, as I said, C-ranking characters that, you know, are people of color as well, but we don't really get to learn very much about them. Several of them get killed off. So it's hard to, you know, gain a connection with these characters. And because Bleda was the only person of color other than Jin who would get these point of view chapters, and both he and Jin died, I don't know, it just doesn't seem right to me. It almost kind of feels like Gwynne was hoping to put Drem and Riv together as the final couple. So I am glad that he didn't do that and he just focused on their friendship instead. But I don't know, it's just kind of, you know, when you have so many characters who are white, you kill off the one character who is a person of color. And I say person of color in particular because that's another issue with this book series. We don't really know very much about these clans. We know that they are, like, quote-unquote, like, I guess, horse clans. They come from, like, this, like, they don't call it the Great Grass Sea, but it's, like, these plains. It has a feeling of the Dothraki very much in it, but it's obviously not. And they don't explain, like, how their hair is, so we can't really make a statement that, you know, in this fantasy world, these people are, you know, not identical, but, like, would be comparable to people of African descent, or people who are, like, from the Middle East, or from, you know, South Asia, and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's hard to pinpoint who these people are supposed to be. And, I mean, the same could be said for the, you know, the white characters. We don't know if they are, you know, are they European, are they... like, when I say European, there's a lot of different Europeans, obviously. You have, like, you know, are they British and Scottish, you know, the Anglo-Saxon side, or are they more Scandinavian? Are we going into, you know, more German, or even to characters who have maybe a touch of color to them, people who are more Mediterranean, and so on. So, like, we don't really get a lot of information about that. So it's kind of, we get told that a lot of people have warrior braids, which is kind of weird. That and, like, short pixie cuts. So short pixie cuts for, like, the Benalim's people, all their White Wings, they get, like, short pixie cuts. or military haircuts, I guess, for the guys, while everybody else, it seems like they talk about the giants have warrior braids, and so do the Sirak and the Charon, and even some people in like the Order of the Bright Star. It's hard to differentiate people, but other than the fact that we know that Bleda and Jin and their people are people of color, and there's a lot of deaths among them, Jin in particular, it didn't sit right. So you got that. Finally, I will make a comment about how they wrapped up all their, or at least tied up all their loose ends, which was way too convenient and a bit too lazy in the writing for me. So at the end of this battle, the main bad guys are dead, but we still have, some half-breed Kadoshim kids kicking around, as well as like some half-breed Ben Alim kids. Riv is obviously one of them, is one of the main storylines. But there are a few Kadoshim, left, as well as there's still quite a few Ben Alim. And Mikal, who is one of these Ben Alim and the Order of the Bright Star, they realize, yeah, we really shouldn't be in this world. We come from a different dimension. The Kadoshim and the Ben Alim, we need to go back to this other world and leave you guys alone in this world of flesh. However, we will leave our half-breed children because this is the only place they've ever known. And so we do get this kind of nice idea of these half-breed Kadoshim people having to, learn to integrate with like everyone else and just trying to make peace after this giant battle. But as for what to do with the Ben Alim and the Kadoshim still, kind of lurking around the Banished Lands, they make a portal, a magic portal that will act as like a magnet and suck any Ben Alim or, lingering Kadoshim from the farthest reaches of the Banished Lands and, put them into this portal and put them back into the other world where they belong. And I'm just kind of speechless because, it almost sounds like they could have done this beforehand. I think they might have mentioned that they needed some Starstone metal to make this portal, so maybe that is the explanation about why they didn't do this earlier. But it's just so freaking convenient, and while I guess it works, it kind of stinks of, having the Eagles come at the very end to, save the day. And I know that that's more in the movies than it is in the book series, which explains where the Eagles were during Lord of the Rings and why they couldn't help fight them or even just take Frodo to Mount Doom to drop off the ring. I don't know. It just, as I said, it seems a bit convenient, seems a little bit lazy, and it was very much kind of, we gotta wrap things up. We can't leave the Ben Alim and the Kadoshim here, but we can't, kill off all of them, so what do we do? Okay, convenient portal takes them all back home. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the series of Blood and Bone. As I mentioned before, it's entertaining. It's a lot of action. If you like action, if you like dark fantasy, if you like, hearing about some gnarly creatures and bloody battles and strategies and, all this kind of stuff, it's definitely worth a read for that. I will admit, as I said, the ending kind of sours it a bit for me. So, if you have watched this video without having read the series and are turned off by, how Gwynne, was treating his, characters who are not white, that can be a bit of a turnoff, and I understand that. So, with all that said, this will be the end of my review. I hope you guys are all doing well and are being safe out there, are staying home if you can. I will be putting out a video with a new reading of my book, which should be coming out this year. Fingers crossed. I've been working with my publisher, and I think we're getting close to the end. We're hoping to aim for June, but I will keep you guys updated about that, and I will be doing a video that will do a reading of the updated manuscript. I added 40,000 words to it, so it will be a new reading compared to the first one I put out back last year. So I'm excited about that. And I'm really excited about the new content I will be debuting, hopefully in the next month or so, of the beginning of my video essays on different films and also just different storytelling techniques and why I find them interesting or why I feel that they're overused and don't really work. So once again, stay safe, drink your water, read a book, enjoy your stories, and I will talk to you all later. Okay, bye.